Well, the biggest political story of this week is no doubt the passing of former Inkatha Freedom Party founder Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Buthelezi described as an outstanding leader in the political and cultural life of the nation. Well, let's get more insight now on his role, particularly in politics. And we speak to political analyst Dr Levy Ndou, who talks to us from the Northwest Province. Dr. Ndou, good morning to you, or good afternoon to you. It tells you what time of day I usually am in this studio. Let's start with what you think those who are going to stand up at Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi's memorial and speak of his legacy. What do you think they should say?
Good afternoon to you, colleague. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Well, I think this is the period of mourning. And in the African culture and tradition, when people are mourning, all they do would be to reflect on the lives and times of those that have departed. And of course, what they do also in the context of the current situation is that they celebrate the lives of those that have departed. And mainly what they do is that they reflect mainly on what these people have done that will make them to be remembered all the time. And I think what most people are going to be doing there would be to look at Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi as the son of KwaZulu-Natal, and also as someone who played a significant role in the body politic of the KwaZulu-Natal province and South Africa in general. And I think what they are going to do would be to reflect on the good things that he has done and also pose a number of questions on those who have to come after him, and indeed those or that one who might be given the responsibility to occupy or take the responsibility that he has taken in his party, the IFP, and in the South African public space in general.
Yeah. Dr. Ndou, already we have read so many adjectives that seek to make us remember. They take us back into time about some of what they say is the legacy of Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi. What struck me today was the coverage of this channel of Amabuto, the various people that live in the hostels who see themselves as Zulu warriors. And what I thought was a very frank admission of something that Chief Buthelezi never really admitted to, and that is that there were widows who lost husbands. There are children today who are orphaned because of what happened back in the wars of, whether you say it is the IFP versus ANC in KwaZulu-Natal or even parts of Gauteng, including the UDF structures that were sometimes that sometimes experienced violence. And what those leaders of Amabuto said today was that there were talks before his passing that he may have wanted to have a discussion about what is to be done about those women who had become widowed as a result of their husbands being killed. Do you think that was in some way his way of trying to make amends and perhaps apologize, which is an apology that never did come?
Well, Tole, I think even though the South Africa is mourning, you'd actually get mixed feelings, as you've rightfully indicated, of people who would hear about Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and associate him with a number of bad things that actually happened. I was watching the interview you had with Advocate Nsebeza, and he outlines a number of things that actually happened, which would have actually been prevented, but unfortunately, such has happened. It is a good thing that Prince Buthelezi wanted to ensure that there is this chapter of massacres and killings has to be closed, and also an attempt to make peace publicly with the ANC. And in my view, it's not only with the ANC, but with other members of the affected families, those in Wipatong, in Katlehong, in Thokoza, and many, many other areas. And my view is that now that he is gone, it is the challenge, and especially from those that are remaining who are in the leadership positions, to say, now that Prince Mangosuthu has passed on, what then do we do to ensure that what he wanted to happen has to be achieved? And my view is that the leadership of Mr. Savisa should actually be at the forefront to initiate this matter so that it's actually concluded. Indeed, when you see some of Amavuto members marching or moving around some of these areas, it does bring those kind of bad memories, especially amongst those who have lost family members, relatives and friends. And this is the moment, in my view, that the old has to be forgotten and we actually look at the future.
Yeah. Something very interesting also has happened with the reflections that are coming thick and fast, Dr. Ndou. And that is that it's a question asked by Mondli Makanya, in fact, on the front page of the City Press today. And he asks the question, who is Buthelezi? And why is everybody so afraid to tell the truth about him? I found that to be a contradiction in terms because of the outspoken nature of Chief Buthelezi. He was unafraid to tell it like it is. Whereas Mondli Makanya observes that perhaps on the part of South Africans, they seem to be afraid to tell the truth about who he really was and what his legacy is. Do you think that indeed it is a fair observation that we are afraid of telling the truth about who he is or who he was and what he did?
Well, I think most of the things that Prince Buthelezi did are known to all of us. What could appear to be the problem would be how and where certain things are supposed to be spoken. I see the article by Mondli Makanya as also an attempt to speak about what actually happened under the leadership of Mr. Buthelezi. We all know what happened before the 1994 elections. We all know the demands that were put on the table by Mr. Buthelezi towards the elections in 1994. People all know that there was a demand by the IFP under the leadership of Mr. Buthelezi to ensure that we don't have a united South Africa, but we've got a federal system. We also do know that the IFP boycotted the last part of the writing of the Constitution because they were demanding the status of the Zulu monarch to be addressed in the Constitution. So most of these issues are actually being known. But at the same time, there could be issues that will require further investigations, issues that will require the courts. And unfortunately, if you don't have people that are coming out with concrete proof, that we can't be able to move forward. Yeah. But what could please us is the fact that he said himself that he would love to see unity and reconciliation between the IFP and the ANC. We also do know about that. And I think it's up to us to say, let's focus on uniting South Africa and forget about what has happened in the past, even though it is quite painful.
And as I close the conversation with you, Dr. Ndou, you reflect on my conversation with Advocate Ntsebeza. I asked him a question about whether there were redeeming features about the legacy of Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi. And in particular, I see all the negatives, but surely this was a multi-dimensional human being. And I say that, for example, when I talk about him being unafraid to go and talk about subjects that were not easy to talk about. He lost 2 of his children to HIV and AIDS. That was something that was taboo to talk about back then, but he did it. I'm saying that things like that surely should give us that multi-dimensional human being, is it not?
Indeed, I would agree. Even though you would have mixed feelings about Prince Buthelezi, we also should not forget that at the time when we were ushered into democracy, he became the Minister of Home Affairs. And in my view, that was an olive branch that was extended to him by the ANC. But also at the same time, Chief Buthelezi was also given the responsibility of being at the helm of running the state. And that, for me, it's a huge responsibility that could be given to any individual. But at the same time, there were a number of good proposals and contributions that Mr. Buthelezi made in Parliament. At the time when Parliament was getting out of hand, you would actually see him standing up and calming the situation in the National Assembly. And I think those are some of the contributions that Mr. Buthelezi has actually made in our democracy in South Africa.
Dr. Levy Ndou, let me thank you very much on your reflections of the life and times of Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi.